Meet our guy, the ultimate no-life gamer who flexes not one, not two, but 7 max-level characters. He's been dominating the hardest virtual reality game out there, practically living in it. But of course, luck had to pull a fast one on him. Just when things go sideways and he gets stuck inside the game, guess which character he's stuck playing? Not his top-tier fighter, not his OP wizard, but his freaking level 10 storage character, the one he only used to hoard items and gear. Total downgrade, right? Sure, it's a shabby start to his new life, but at least he's swimming in items, weapons, and supplies. Maybe, just maybe, his gear hoarding obsession will save the day. Welcome to the story of an unlucky office worker who had been trapped in a game as a character who couldn't fight. He had a lot of great items but no combat skills. This was the story of a man who had to use his smarts to survive in a tough game world where a new update brought unknown dangers and a plan to destroy humanity. Let's follow his journey. Meet Kim Junwoo, a man with no money or girlfriend, who had loved reading updates about his favorite game, Over the Fantasy, on his phone. Junwoo was a regular office worker who had spent his free time playing games. It had been his only interest in his otherwise dull life. It was now 2039 and technology had improved a lot. Virtual reality glasses let players experience games in a realistic 3D world. This game had been very popular because it was so real and hard, making it tough for players who paid money to win easily. After work, Junwoo had been excited to log into the game, saying, "I thought I'd die waiting to get home today." The game was going to get a big update at midnight. It was 7 p.m. now and Junwoo, who liked to be perfect and decided to log in early to get ready. He sat in his chair, put on his glasses and a virtual screen and keyboard appeared. Having 3 high-level characters meant you wasted a lot of time, but with 7 characters like Junwoo, it had been even more extreme. Junwoo logged into a new character, Dio, a level 10 beginner with no class yet. He had picked this character to use his item storage. When Dio opened his eyes, Junwoo's mind merged with the avatar. Junwoo had known a new class was coming, so he planned to organize his items and sign up Dio for the new class. He opened his inventory and saw hundreds of messy items, realizing it would take time to sort. This town was where Junwoo had kept his storage. He went to his storage area and met an old NPC named Tony who guarded it. Junwoo opened a large storage space for easier sorting. Tony had asked for 1 silver coin, and Junwoo had paid, and knowing that storage fees increased with levels. He put a dagger in the storage, planning to move it later. Suddenly the system had announced a new update in 15 minutes, telling players to log out. Junwoo, who had spent hours organizing, scratched his cheek and decided to ignore it, and also knowing he would be logged out automatically. The city with a level cap of 100 would have kept him safe from being killed and robbed. He kept organizing and feeling uneasy and sensing he needed to hurry. 5 minutes before the update, the system's red screen had shown an error, telling players to log out. Suddenly the notification screen had broken and a black message had appeared: "You cannot send messages." Junwoo focused on finishing his inventory, and he hadn't noticed at first. After he finished, he stretched but realized something was wrong. There was no log out button. The game felt too real. Junwoo looked at his hands, which glowed faintly blue. He started to panic. Thinking quickly, Junwoo ran to the spatial rift, hoping to find other players, but the portal was gone. A child bumped into him and the pain felt alarmingly real. Was this still a game? He had sweated heavily, feeling cold fear. He told himself it was just a glitch, cursed the developers and planned to sue once he escaped. 3 days later, still trapped, Junwoo looked thin and wandered the streets in despair. He had finally accepted that this world was real and he was stuck as a level 10 character with no profession. In the city's army training area, the team leader had been teaching new recruits while Junwoo, with his arms crossed, had been watching. Over the past 3 days, Junwoo had searched the city but hadn't found any clues. He had realized that he was the weakest among 7 top-level players stuck in the game. Even though he had bad luck, he had a lot of money. A soldier had noticed Junwoo acting strangely and had asked if he was there for a reason. Junwoo had casually said, "I'm just watching." The soldier had invited Junwoo to join the training, but he had said no and had asked, "Why so much training?" The soldier had explained, "It's for monster waves. Avera, an NPC village, is always under attack. Helping NPCs gives better experience. Since the village's level cap is 100 and you're level 10, these attacks are too hard for you." Dio, Junwoo's character, had felt regretful. If he died in the game, he would die in real life too. He needed to survive. When he checked his inventory, he had found job change scrolls for assassin and martial arts master but couldn't use them because his stats were messed up. With strength at 50 and other stats low, Dio had felt hopeless. Suddenly a purple scroll appeared in Junwoo's inventory, glowing with a new color. Titled Job Change Scroll, Talent breakthrough, character class unknown in Phase 2, it could be used at the Forgotten Temple altar. It required a Phase 1 class and a reputation of 500. Though Dio couldn't use it yet, he knew hidden places often held solutions. Despite the game's lack of information and frustrating quests, Dio enjoyed the challenge. Feeling the scroll was crucial for his survival, Dio headed to the mercenary guild in A Dawning Village after saying goodbye to Old Man Tony. In a hooded cloak, Dio entered the crowded lounge of level 100 experts. Nervous, he approached the receptionist, only to be told to wait in line by a stern man who mocked Dio's poor clothes. Dio tossed a gold coin and said, "Let me see the guild leader." The receptionist was shocked by the A-rank honor medal Dio displayed. The medal clinked on the table, drawing everyone's attention. The receptionist stammered. Nearby hunters were amazed, as only 0.1% of hunters had such a medal. Dio's plan was to use the A-rank medal to fake a high reputation and conceal his true stats with a hooded cloak. He also showed a high-grade medal. "See how impressive it is," he said. The medal acted as a royal pass, ensuring respect. The crowd quickly moved away, treating him like a top expert. Dio had asked, "Am I now allowed to meet the guild master?" Even though he had acted confidently, he had been nervous. He had worried they might check his items, which would have been a problem. An elderly voice had then said, "Oh, our special guest is here." The speaker had introduced himself as Cotton, a guild manager from the village. Even though he was over 60, he had been strong and muscular. He had told Dio, "Let's go upstairs to talk." Dio's eyes had brightened, but he had stayed cautious. He had crossed his arms and had said, "I didn't ask to meet the guild master, did I?" Cotton had bowed deeply and had apologized. "I'm sorry, the guild master is not here. I'll handle your request instead." Dio, impressed by the manager's sincerity, had agreed. They had gone upstairs to a private area, marking the first step of Dio's plan. Now he had hoped the talks would go well. Cotton's attitude changed from respectful to serious as they started discussing business. "So, you want a mission to the Forgotten Temple?" Dio replied confidently, "Yes, I have no additional conditions." Cotton stroked his beard. "We have a mission to the Forgotten Temple, but it's already full." Dio, pleased, said, "I'll take it." Noting Cotton's hesitation, he added, "No rewards needed, just a safe trip." Cotton asked, "So you want to be treated as a protected person?" Dio replied, "I won't stand by if there's danger." Cotton agreed, and recognizing Dio's extra combat power would be useful, and smiled. "All right, we'll assign the mission to you." Dio signed the contract and agreed to meet at the North Gate the next morning. The next day 3 hunters waited at the North Gate. A burly hunter remarked, "What's an A-rank hunter doing here?" The blue-haired hunter warned, "He's A-rank, don't offend him." Raymond introduced himself, "Are you the A-rank hunter?" "I'm Raymond." Dio, using the name Monty, shook hands. He was surprised to find only 4 guards on the trip and felt foolish for negotiating without conditions. Raymond asked, "Shall we wait for the mission leader?" At that moment, a girl in a blue cloak and short skirt arrived, looking flustered. She panted, "Are you escorting me to the Forgotten Temple?" "I'm Clara, the priestess of the Luna Temple." Dio noticed Clara's disheveled appearance. Clara caught his gaze and stared, making Dio uncomfortable. Raymond announced, "Let's go." They set off under the blazing sun. Dio's system screen warned him of entering an area with stronger monsters. As night fell, the group set up a campfire. Raymond pulled out a map to plan their next camping spot, suggesting a detour for safety. Dio, staying calm, objected. Standing alone with his arms crossed, he said, "We should take a shortcut. If we go to campsite number 3, there's a secret cave that leads straight to the Forgotten Temple." Raymond dismissed Dio's suggestion. "We know the terrain better. Campsite number 3 isn't safe." Dio insisted, "I can navigate with my eyes closed. The shortcut through Dunville Forest is faster." Raymond's alarm grew. "Dunville Forest? It's filled with dangerous monsters." Ignoring the concern, Dio firmly said, "We're taking the shortcut to campsite number 3. The team looked uneasy, but Dio reassured them, "A shorter route is better for the priestess's stamina. I joined this mission to enjoy your company." He turned to Clara, "What do you think?" Clara looked a bit confused and unsure if Dio's insistence on the shortcut was due to him flirting or genuine concern. She finally said, "I'd prefer to go faster, so I agree with Monty." Raymond reluctantly agreed, grumbling, "Fine, but if danger arises, I hope you, Mr. A-rank, can handle it." Dio smiled and assured him, "Don't worry." The group rested overnight, but Dio found it hard to sleep, feeling the strain of the journey. The next morning, they reached the 3rd campsite. Raymond asked Dio, "Is there really a cave here?" "Yes, but be careful. This area might have wolves," Dio warned. Raymond then stepped into a bush to relieve himself, which annoyed Dio. I warned you, Dio said, but Raymond shot back, can't I even pee? Dio took the chance to show his leadership. He told Clara to rest while everyone checked the map. Suddenly, a loud scream pierced the air. Raymond had been attacked by a large wolf, its sharp claws tearing at his back. Clara scared and held her magic wand tightly while Dio grinned. A woodman with a sword yelled at Dio, "Hey Mr. Rank A, don't just stand there." Dio smirked and said, I warned him. He needs to fix his own problems. The others rolled their eyes, thinking, why is this mercenary so cheeky? Dio told Clara to stay close as they watched the hunters. Raymond fell but two teammates quickly helped him. The shield bearer blocked a swipe from a wild wolf while the other hunter slashed its arm. Their teamwork overwhelmed the wolf. Dio noticed they were around level 100. Another wolf, already being beaten by two hunters, was about to go berserk. Dio saw a chance to show off. He pulled out a rusty 4-edge iron mace, moved in, and struck at the right moment. With the mace on his shoulder, Dio walked away arrogantly. Clara, let's help them. Clara agreed. Dio approached the sweating fighter and said, step aside. The fighter glared but didn't argue. Raymond annoyed and said, you've been watching this whole time and now you help? Not all A ranks are like you, huh? Just then the werewolf began to rage, swelling with power and glowing with a murderous aura. Raymond nearly panicked. What is this? The other hunter's shield shattered and he retreated. Dio stayed behind swinging his iron mace. Thump! He hit the wolf's head, stunning it. To the hunters, it seemed Dio had defeated it with one blow, but it was a trick. Dio knew the werewolf's berserk state could be neutralized with a purification herb. See, this is the skill of a knowledgeable gamer, Dio said, ordering a retreat. He pretended to dodge the wolf's attacks. I'm not like you guys, am I? Dio slammed the wolf into a tree, making it dizzy. Then, with two powerful thuds, Dio's mace killed the beast. He arrogantly stepped on it, but in reality the wolf would have died from a burst blood vessel after its rage ended. Dio had staged a dramatic performance while avoiding direct contact due to the level difference. Dio cheerfully thanked Clara, thanks, priestess. We owe you this favor. Clara smiled, it's nothing. It's my responsibility. Dio then asked Raymond, what about you? He placed his hand on his chest and said sincerely, it's my fault for choosing this dangerous path. Raymond's resentment faded. He awkwardly said, I'm fine. I made mistakes too. The other teammates realized they had judged too quickly. Despite his rudeness, Dio's experience was clear. As night fell they lit a campfire and found the secret cave Dio had mentioned. Raymond trusted Dio more now and was willing to listen to him. Dio chose a corner, crossed his arms and looked imposing. Anyone could find this place with instructions. Don't praise me too much. Raymond and his team still stared at Dio. Hey Ranka, tell us about your adventure and how to get the Medal of the Empire. Dio was wary and avoided getting too close. He advised them on the next journey, suggested taking turns for night watch and settled down to rest. The plan went well. Dio earned their trust and needed them to believe he had information about a new game update. Despite knowing the game scenarios from playing 7 characters to max level, he knew new details could change everything. He had to think through each step carefully. The fire crackled as everyone prepared for the next day. Dio defeated another monster and everyone cheered for him. They didn't know he had used Weed Killer on his Iron Club, a trick from his alchemist character. Despite his efforts, Dio didn't gain any experience points because his character refused to change jobs. Dio watched with tears in his eyes. Some monsters, even drugged, still fought back. Riker blocked a strong attack with his shield, and Dio advised, Ray, dodge instead of blocking, and Raymond, attack when they're weak. After the monster was defeated, everyone cheered again, grateful for Dio's advice. As they neared the end of the cave, Dio searched for a secret path to the Forgotten Temple and found a small glowing hole in the ground. The hunter asked, do we really have to crawl through this? Yes, it's a shortcut, Dio replied. The others were concerned about the hole size. Dio led the priestess, Clara, through it and she noticed his polite manners. He reminded her to stay calm as they fell through the hole. When Clara opened her eyes, they had arrived at the Forgotten Temple. Clara was amazed to be in this sacred place. The other hunters arrived awkwardly. Clara admired the murals while Dio studied them, recognizing their importance. The paintings showed the war between Luna, the moon goddess, and the demon lord. When Raymond thought one painting showed an execution, Dio corrected him, saying, that's a knight being blessed by Luna. Dio noticed that this knight looked like the one from the game's advertisement. Clara realized it was a prophecy and said, I've never seen a temple in a cave before. Knowing Clara was a priestess of Luna, Dio asked, what does the prophecy say? Clara read the ancient writing, we are nearing the apocalypse. Dio recognized this line from a new trailer, confirming the map was new to him. Concerned, he led the group deeper into the temple. They reached a hall with giant warrior statues and a golden knight kneeling in the center, the same knight from the trailer. Clara thought the statue was cute, but Dio felt nervous, sensing it might move at any moment. Clara thought there was no life here, but Dio, being an experienced player, knew the difference between an NPC and a statue. They weren't ready to face a powerful NPC like this, Dio worried. At the altar, the system announced Dio's entry into the lost ancient heritage and a mission notification appeared. You have completed the protection of the female priestess. Clara bowed in thanks, signaling the end of the mission. Suddenly the system lit up again. You have met the conditions for the hidden mission of the ancient relic. Dio broke into a cold sweat as the mission activated. The roof shook, startling Clara. Boom! The golden knight statue moved, breaking apart to reveal a terrifying dark figure with glowing eyes. Raymond screamed, "The statue is glowing." The statue turned into a dark knight in black armor. This level 300 NPC was far too powerful for them. Once a holy order knight, it had been cursed into a death knight with a menacing aura. Dio knew this monster shouldn't have been in a level 100 area. Dio knew that fighting the death knight directly was useless. He needed to uncover the hidden truth to succeed. The class transfer scroll lit up again, showing a new hidden mission, to take the death knight's sword. Dio remembered that death knights, like other knights, were weak against a cleric's holy light. If they used a cleric's holy shield to cover the death knight, it would go wild and break the shield, making the fight easier. Luckily Dio had a cleric in his group. The room crackled with electricity as the death knight roared, "Dare you step into the altar?" Clara shook with fear. "Monty, it's too dangerous." Dio placed a reassuring hand on Clara's shoulder. "Use the magic shield. This event is crucial for my class change and survival. We must complete it." Clara scared and protested, "You can't win. It's hopeless." Dio urged her, "We can't run. Deploy the magic shield now before it's too late." Trembling Clara raised her wand and chanted, "Light of the moon, protect us." A green light shone from her wand. She aimed it at the death knight, who was raising his sword. Dio helped her cast the holy shield. The death knight was covered in a faint golden shield, stopping his movements. Clara was amazed at how well the holy shield worked. Dio was curious about who Monty was and reminded everyone not to get too comfortable. They were just starting. The death knight's sword vanished, signaling the start of the next stage. Dozens of purple swords appeared, sticking into the ground. A scream from behind Dio warned, "Sir Monty, be careful." Dio asked, "Do you know who I am?" The system announced that the mission matched the death knight, who suddenly calmed down. Dio realized this was a game element related to truth and justice. The mission space opened, isolating Dio and the knight for a key dialogue that might hold clues for the hidden mission. Recalling the trailer, Dio remembered the golden armored figure was the female knight Dark, a beautiful knight with golden hair. She had been waiting for a messenger from the military institute who never returned. Her anger had turned her into a death knight, while the messenger became a wandering spirit. Dio understood this was crucial. After completing the mission, Dio returned and showed the Medal of Honor. The knight examined it and said, "Well done." Dio's heart raced as she recognized him as an ally. The screen announced Dio had found the top knight of the Holy Empire. Dark began, "A long time has passed. We were defeated and fell from God's favor. Many comrades have perished, Langbolt, Font, Chris, and..." Dio struggled to recall the missing name. He looked at the medal, feeling urgency. "Hurry, time is running out." Dark raised her sword to her chest and declared, "New recruit, you have given me hope." She swiped her sword across Dio's shoulder, surprising him. "This isn't a beheading, right?" he wondered. "It's a knighting ceremony." The trailer song played in Dio's mind. Dark seemed to be waiting not only for reinforcements but possibly also for her lover. Junwo, after reflecting on recent events, developed a new theory. Dark, a cursed death knight, might not only have been waiting for reinforcements but also longing for her lover. While looking at Dark, Junwo considered this possibility, especially since a recent event in the game had provided him with a clue. He thought that Dark's lover might be connected to the larger storyline. Junwo then remembered the medallion he had obtained from the Tardo Temple, which had ties to the ancient Holy Empire. It seemed too important to be a coincidence. Hoping to learn more, Junwo presented the medallion to Dark. Her reaction was immediate. She dropped her sword in surprise, showing vulnerability. The game notified Junwo that Dark's waiting status had been fulfilled, and she began to transform, shedding her cursed form and revealing her true self. Dark, still unsure if her lover would accept her in her current state, thanked Junwo for helping her escape her cursed existence. However, Junwo clarified that he was only a messenger, bringing her lover's keepsake to her. Dark wept as she held the medallion, praying to reunite with her lover in the afterlife. Dark completed her transformation, becoming her radiant true self, and the game notified Junhwa that he had finished the story of the fallen Holy Knight. Junhwa received the ancient dead sword of vengeance as a reward and gained a new trait, life energy. He was shocked by the changes happening to his character, and before he could fully process it, a massive explosion shook the temple. Junhwa awoke in the real world, lying in his apartment. For a moment, he thought the entire ordeal had been just a dream, but as he tried to make sense of it, he heard someone call him by his in-game name, Monty. He quickly realized he was still inside the game and dreaming of the real world. His companions greeted him warmly, happy that Junhwa had returned safely after his encounter with Dark. Junhwa's companions praised him for his bravery, but he couldn't help feeling frustrated with Raymond and the other mercenaries for abandoning him during their first encounter with Dark. The mercenaries sensed Junhwa's need for space and quietly left his tent. Junhwa examined the ancient dead sword of vengeance, noting its high level. He felt unsettled by the game's changes and realized he still had much to uncover. Needing fresh air, he left the tent and was greeted by the priestess, who expressed concern for him. Junhwa assured her he was fine and encouraged her to continue her mission while he returned to the temple to retrieve the book of promotions from his inventory. Junhwa activated the promotions, feeling a familiar sensation like the energy Dark had once channeled within him. He realized that the sword he now wielded had once been Dark's, used to knight him. As he absorbed the power of the promotions, the game notified him that he had been promoted to the class of Forgotten Swordsman, an ordinary yet growth-type skill. He felt all the experience points from his previous battles flow into his new form. Puzzled by this new class, Junhwa analyzed the details of his status window to understand the growth-type ability he had just acquired. Before he could delve deeper, the priestess and the mercenaries interrupted him, informing him that their mission was complete and it was time to return to Avera village. Despite being preoccupied with his new abilities, Junhwa smiled and hid his deeper thoughts from them. Once they returned safely to Avera village, Raymond remained impressed by Junhwa's unorthodox training methods, such as being chased by werewolves. Raymond invited Junhwa to join them at the guild to claim their rewards, but Junhwa clarified that he hadn't participated in the mission for any reward. The priestess insisted that Junhwa deserved recognition for saving them, but Junhwa declined, knowing he had been hiding his true identity from them. Though they were disappointed, Raymond still invited Junhwa for a drink, calling him Bro Junhwa, feeling closer to them but staying focused on his own agenda, respectfully declined. He was relieved to return to his true self after shedding the guise of Monty. With some free time ahead, Junhwa began planning his next steps, aware that a monster wave was approaching Avera village, and prepared himself for the challenges ahead. Junhwa focused on preparing for the upcoming monster wave. At level 35, his character had a class called the Forgotten Swordsman, with stats including strength at 50, and 5 points each for agility, intelligence, vitality, and mana. He also had a bonus of 125 points to distribute. Unsure of how best to use his new class, Junhwa carefully studied its abilities. He realized that the red energy within him, called the Sealed Anger, was part of his new powers. While this new strength intimidated him, Junhwa reminded himself that adapting to new challenges was part of the game. One of his new skills, the Pledge of Liberation, allowed him to sacrifice his vitality to free a target. Though useful, it seemed risky and perhaps not helpful in all situations. He also had a basic attack skill, Slash, which he found underwhelming. However, he soon discovered a mysterious new skill that changed based on his state of mind and connected to the energy he absorbed from Dark, the Death Knight he had recently fought. Junhwa began to understand the growth-type nature of his class, realizing that his power would evolve as he grew stronger and continued to use the abilities tied to the Death Knight. Wanting to level up quickly to face the monster wave, Junhwa set a goal to reach level 50. He targeted strong enemies like the Armored Turtle, a level 83 monster, despite being significantly lower in level. By observing its movements and attacking weak spots, Junhwa managed to defeat it and gain enough experience to reach level 36. Frustrated by his inability to use higher-level weapons due to restrictions, he pressed on, knowing that leveling up was essential for his survival. Through countless battles and steady progress, Junhwa eventually reached level 50. As he stood among the defeated monsters, he knew he was finally ready for the monster wave approaching Avera village. With only 5 minutes left before the attack, Junhwa rushed back to the village, where the soldiers were already preparing for battle. The tension in the air was palpable as a horde of monsters drew closer, and the soldiers braced themselves for the fight. The archers launched a barrage of arrows at the advancing monsters, hitting many targets and slowing their advance. As the monsters got closer, the soldiers adjusted their formation, sending shield bearers to protect the front lines and preparing to deploy spearmen. Amid this chaos, Junwoo arrived just in time to offer his help. Using his sharp combat instincts, Junwoo assessed the battlefield quickly and joined the fight. His swift and precise movements left the soldiers in awe, as he struck down monsters before they could react. The soldiers were inspired by his reputation as the A-ranked mercenary, Monty, and his presence lifted their spirits. Though Junwoo was touched by their gratitude, he also felt uncomfortable when one of the soldiers recognized him from an earlier encounter. He had met this soldier when he felt trapped in the game, and their interaction had been awkward. Still, the soldier thanked him for his help, and Junwoo assured the group that he would fight alongside them. Junwoo, aware that many of the monsters were nearly double his level, knew he needed to use everything at his disposal. He activated his Lens of Certainty, an item that allowed him to see the health of monsters below a certain rank. With this tool, he targeted the weak points of the approaching creatures, aiming to deal critical blows that would turn the tide of battle. Despite the overwhelming odds, Junwoo's careful preparation and strategy gave him the confidence to face the challenges ahead. He remained focused on maximizing his effectiveness in combat, knowing that survival depended on his ability to adapt and use the tools and skills he had gained throughout his journey. With the monster wave closing in on Avera village, Junwoo was ready to fight with all his strength. As Junwoo fought through the chaos of battle, his confidence grew with each monster he defeated. He skillfully wielded his sword, taking down enemies swiftly and efficiently. Though it appeared that he was fighting randomly, Junwoo was actually targeting monsters with low health to ensure he dealt the final blow and earned experience points. His sharp awareness allowed him to avoid surprise attacks, and he even saved a soldier from danger by pushing him out of the way of a lurking monster. Junwoo's swordsmanship left the soldiers in awe. They admired his ability to use a large sword with ease and precision. He soon spotted a berserk werewolf amid the battle and quickly defeated it with a well-placed strike. The soldiers, feeling relieved and grateful, watched as Junwoo continued to fight with skill and confidence. At one point, Junwoo faced a group of insect monsters. With a firm grip on his sword, he swiftly assessed the situation and urged the tired soldiers to fall back. He knew the insects were not a significant threat to him, so he took it upon himself to finish them off. Though one insect dodged his first strike, Junwoo adjusted his stance and swiftly dispatched it. The soldiers were astonished by his skill, especially when he took down 3 insect monsters with ease. As Junwoo's blade cut through the air, some soldiers began to whisper, speculating whether he had magical abilities due to the way his sword seemed to set off explosions. They also started to believe his earlier claim of having the Imperial Medal of Honor. This was bolstered when Junwoo reached a proficiency of level 100 and gained a new ability for his slash skill, allowing him to leave marks on enemies that would explode and deal damage to up to 5 targets. Though impressed by his new skill, Junwoo worried that the explosions might harm him. To counter this, he equipped his salamander's light armor, which protected against fire-based damage. Confident in his new gear, he took on the remaining insect monsters with ease, their weakness to fire making them easy prey. Just as the battle seemed to be in control, a new threat emerged, a guillotine bear, a level 150 named monster. The soldiers looked to Junwoo for leadership, making him nervous. Although he would have preferred to leave the fight to the NPCs, he knew he couldn't avoid the challenge. The bear immediately launched a ferocious attack, but Junwoo dodged its sharp claws with agility. He circled the bear, looking for weak spots, and attacked when the opportunity presented itself. Junwoo quickly realized that the bear's thick skin made it harder to injure than the other monsters he had faced. However, his investment in agility paid off, allowing him to move swiftly and avoid the bear's attacks. His intense training had honed his reflexes, making him fast enough to evade the beast's strikes and plan his counterattacks. As the battle raged on, Junwoo decided to use strategy over brute force. He led the guillotine bear through a path filled with weaker monsters, which were caught in the crossfire of the bear's rage. In a bold move, Junwoo pulled out a bottle containing a substance he had saved for a critical moment. He launched the bottle toward the bear, and as it shattered, the contents released a gas-like odor. Seizing the opportunity, Junwoo activated his explosive skill and channeled his energy into a powerful strike aimed directly at the bear. The explosion was immense, and Junwoo stood victorious, feeling satisfied as his plan to defeat the guillotine bear with explosives succeeded. The bear, once a terrifying force, now lay unconscious. The soldiers cheered, impressed by Junwoo's clever tactics and strength. Even though the battle seemed over, Junwoo knew he had to stay alert. The monsters, once fierce, now hesitated, intimidated by Junwoo's presence. With the bear defeated, Junwoo summoned another explosion from his sword, delivering a final, powerful blow. Exhausted from the fight, Junwoo was escorted by carriage to rest. As he relaxed, the carriage was stopped by a guard for inspection. The guard, upon seeing Junwoo, was surprised and wondered if he was truly the famous monster hunter known as Monty. The guard eagerly recounted stories of Junwoo's heroism in Avera village, admiring his bravery and skill. Junwoo, feeling shy, nodded in thanks. After the inspection, the carriage resumed its journey, and Junwoo reflected on his rising fame. As the carriage approached the Paramount Plains, Junwoo opened his status window to check his progress. Now at level 80, he realized he still needed to unlock one final skill, which required meeting a specific condition. Curious about recent events, Junwoo asked the coachman for any news. The coachman explained that a bandit uprising had occurred 10 days ago in the western regions, prompting the third prince of the Freon Empire to send soldiers to suppress it. Junwoo remembered a similar scenario from his gaming experience, where he had formed a connection with the third prince. The coachman also shared that many people had recently gone missing in Liburnos village, raising suspicions. Junwoo, grateful for the information, paid the coachman generously and decided to disembark to investigate further. As the carriage left, Junwoo felt a sense of relief at no longer needing to hide his identity. However, he had another reason for getting off the carriage. He remembered a hidden quest rumored to be in the area. Junwoo knew the quest involved eliminating a gang of slavers operating in the nearby Tur mountain range, believed to be behind the disappearances in Liburnos village. His goal wasn't just justice, he was also after the agility elixir, a valuable item he could gain from defeating the gang's boss. As Junwoo neared the gang's hideout, he pulled his cloak tighter to hide his identity. He saw two guards patrolling the entrance, relaxed and unaware of the danger they were in. Listening to their conversation, Junwoo learned that the guards were confident in their success, believing they were safe. Junwoo took the opportunity to strike. With quick, precise movements, he neutralized the first guard before the second could react. Junwoo swiftly silenced the second guard as well, ensuring neither could alert the rest of the gang. Despite the guards being at level 50, Junwoo overpowered them without needing to use his special skills. As he caught his breath, he noticed a bird trapped in a nearby cage. Feeling compassion, Junwoo freed the bird, watching it fly away to safety. Deeper in the cave, the gang leader was discussing their illegal operations with his followers, showing no concern for the missing villagers. One member voiced worries about drawing too much attention, but the leader dismissed them, confident that the corrupt nobles in Liburnos wouldn't investigate the disappearances. Junwoo made his way further into the cave, his presence unnoticed until the last moment. The gang leader, caught off guard by Junwoo's sudden arrival, barely had time to react. Junwoo remained calm and confident, sarcastically commenting that he had cleared the room for a private moment with the gang leader. He revealed a barrel containing the body of a fallen gang member, provoking the other members into action. They attacked Junwoo fiercely, but he handled them with ease. With precise sword strikes, Junwoo dispatched two enemies in one swift motion, never letting them exploit his blind spots. The gang leader, shocked by Junwoo's skill, watched in disbelief as his followers fell. Junwoo, still calm and collected, remarked to the leader that they now had the room to themselves. However, beneath his light tone, Junwoo's determination to end the gang's operations burned strong. As Junwoo confronted the gang leader, the leader's tough demeanor crumbled. Desperation filled his face as he pleaded for mercy, claiming their actions were not their choice but ordered by unseen forces. Despite his hatred for the gang, Junwoo struggled with the idea of becoming as violent as them. He questioned the leader, asking if they ever felt remorse for their victims. Junwoo knew that sometimes, difficult decisions had to be made for the greater good. While searching through the gang's belongings, Junwoo found a key. His excitement grew as he unlocked a treasure chest and discovered the agility elixir, which would permanently boost his agility by 5 points. Eager to feel its effects, he drank the elixir immediately, feeling his exhaustion lift as energy surged through him. However, a sense of unease overcame him, and he heard mysterious voices echoing from deep within the cave. Curious and cautious, Junwoo explored the walls, suspecting a hidden chamber. His instincts were correct, he found a secret room containing the evil gang's victims. The sight of their suffering horrified him, even though he had witnessed it before in the game. Moved by empathy, Junwoo pressed on, knowing there were more secrets to uncover. He soon came across a wooden door and, upon entering, discovered a woman sitting in a magic circle. Her pale and exhausted face reflected both relief and despair. Junwoo recognized the woman as Sepia, the bandit black mage, a tragic character destined to be a human sacrifice in a dark ritual. He also recalled that her brother, Sigmund, led the Liburnos Secondary Knight Corps and was fated to become the Knight of Judgment after her death. Sepia carried the stigma of death, a cursed mark that doomed her to die, immune to healing or rescue by other players. Her fate was sealed within the game's story, but Junwoo saw her as more than just a character. Sepia asked Junwoo to end her life, but instead, he considered using his Pledge of Liberation skill, which allowed him to form a bond with a target who accepted his promise. However, he hesitated, unsure if his skill could break her curse, as abnormal effects might prevent it from working. Still, Junwoo couldn't ignore Sepia's plight. He realized that she wasn't just part of the game's plot, she was someone who deserved a chance at salvation. In a moment of clarity, Junwoo decided to help her. He knelt before Sepia and promised to save her. Sepia, overwhelmed by his kindness, nodded in agreement, shocked by his willingness to help. Junwoo took her hand, activating the Pledge of Liberation, which bound them together in a powerful, glowing connection. Despite the risks, including draining his own energy, Junwoo remained committed to saving her. The bond between them released a radiant light, so intense it nearly blinded him. Suddenly, a system notification appeared, informing Junwoo that he had unknowingly completed a hidden quest. As the light faded, Junwoo opened his eyes, confused by his new surroundings. He found himself in a hellish realm, surrounded by monsters with skin tones that matched the fiery landscape. Amid the chaos, Junwoo spotted a group of knights preparing to defend themselves against the approaching creatures. As the tension rose, Junwoo's attention was drawn to the knight's armor, recognizing it as distinct and purposeful. The battle intensified when a three-headed werewolf, capable of spewing flames, appeared. The knights fought bravely, but Junwoo felt concern for their safety. Amidst the conflict, an unexpected presence entered the scene, a radiant figure resembling a beautiful woman, glowing with an ethereal light. The angelic woman brought a sense of hope and calm to the battlefield. As she approached, her gaze locked onto Junwoo with an intensity that stunned him. She extended her hand in blessing, and just as quickly as she had appeared, Junwoo found himself back in the cave. Confused, he tried to make sense of the surreal experience he had just undergone, unsure of what had happened. As Junwoo reflected on his recent dream, he wondered if it was connected to Sepia, who was now resting after their encounter. He questioned whether the large-scale war and the mysterious woman he had seen in the dream were somehow related to her. Just then, the game notified him that he had unlocked a hidden quest reward, an upgrade to his skill, the Pledge of Liberation. Excited, Junwoo eagerly accepted, hoping to further strengthen his abilities and free Sepia from her curse. Junwoo started the process of removing Sepia's curse, but the effort drained his vitality to 10%. However, Sepia began to recover, and eventually, she regained consciousness. Relieved, she felt her pain lifting and looked at Junwoo, grateful for his help. The game notified him that he had successfully cleared the hidden quest, but the rewards seemed insignificant compared to the emotional toll of the experience. With Sepia now saved, Junwoo gently carried her out of the cave. As Sepia rested, she dreamed of her brother Sigmund, only to realize the figure in her dream was not him but someone who looked like Junwoo. Waking up, Sepia found she no longer felt pain and was thankful for Junwoo's efforts. She noticed that, despite his powerful weapon, Junwoo had no visible scars, and she wondered if her brother had a role in Junwoo coming to her aid. Junwoo awoke and, embarrassed by his relaxed behavior, introduced himself as Dio. Sepia, shy but grateful, introduced herself and wanted to learn more about how he had saved her. Although Junwoo had encountered her within the game's storyline, he found it hard to explain the connection, fearing it would complicate things. Curious about her brother, Junwoo asked for his name, but Sepia was reluctant to share details. Realizing she might be wondering why a stranger had saved her, Junwoo openly expressed his desire to help, hoping to ease the tension between them. However, he still felt uncertain about how Sepia would react. Despite their conversation, Sepia didn't remember the pact she had made with Junwoo. According to the game, she was now bound to obey him under the Pledge of Liberation. This pact saved her life, but it also restricted her freedom, which troubled Junwoo. He decided to approach the situation carefully, explaining Sigmund's role as the Knight of Libernas and inviting Sepia to join him on his journey. Although she was hesitant, likely due to her past trauma, Junwoo reassured her with a gentle gesture, offering his hand for comfort. When Sepia hesitated, Junwoo activated the pledge and commanded her to take his hand. She complied, though her emotions remained distant. As they held hands, Junwoo explained the nature of their agreement and that disobedience would result in pain or other consequences. He emphasized that the pact was the only way to ensure her survival. Sepia, stunned by the situation, reflected on his words in silence. Surprisingly, the game notified Junwoo that Sepia's trust in him had increased by 3 points. Feeling relief, Sepia thanked him for saving her life and expressed hope that he would take care of her. Junwoo, happy that she trusted him, agreed, and they decided to travel to Libernas together. Meanwhile, at the evil gang's headquarters, their true leader was furious upon learning of Sepia's escape. One gang member nervously explained how the others had been defeated. The leader, Lord Victor, punished him in anger, though his fury was directed more at the gang's failure to protect Sepia, who had been intended as a human sacrifice. Victor had captured Sepia because of her connection to Sigmund, but over time, he had realized her potential as a mage. Now that she had escaped, he lamented losing the chance to increase his power from the third circle to the seventh. As Victor punished the gang member, another rushed in with news that Sepia had been found. Determined, Lord Victor vowed to reclaim her and confront Junwoo in a final showdown. As night settled, Junwoo and Sepia found themselves surrounded by darkness. Junwoo knew rushing ahead would be dangerous, so they took time to rest. However, a nagging feeling kept bothering Junwoo, urging him to be cautious. Sepia's voice interrupted his uneasy thoughts. She was curious about Junwoo's background as a mercenary and asked him about his extraordinary abilities. Junwoo felt uncomfortable as he tried to explain his powers, claiming they were just a coincidence. But his vague explanation only made Sepia doubt him, and Junwoo felt her trust slipping away, making him uneasy. To change the subject, Junwoo asked Sepia about how she had been captured. Sepia's expression became sad, recalling painful memories. Junwoo quickly reassured her that she didn't have to share her story if she wasn't comfortable. Sepia smiled, finding Junwoo's response sweet and kind. She even admitted that she couldn't be mad at someone who had saved her life. Their trust was slowly rebuilding. Suddenly, Junwoo grabbed Sepia and asked her to stay close, sensing danger nearby. Sepia was confused and asked him what was happening. Junwoo urged her to look behind, his voice tense with urgency. As Sepia turned, fear crept up her spine. It was a feeling she had felt before when she was in the hands of her captors. A chain appeared, followed by the arrival of Victor, grinning slyly. He had come with his minions, determined to reclaim Sepia. Junwoo stood firm, ready to face Victor. Victor seemed surprised that Junwoo recognized him but quickly realized Junwoo must have noticed his unique magical mark. Victor sneered, challenging Junwoo's nobility and saying he had no right to claim Sepia as his own. Junwoo responded with sarcastic humor, apologizing for taking what Victor considered his possession. Without wasting any more time, Junwoo attacked, hurling small pieces of wood with mysterious symbols at Victor and his minions. The wood exploded on impact, causing chaos among Victor's followers. Junwoo smirked and sarcastically remarked that they were now even. Victor's anger grew as he realized Junwoo was stronger than he had expected. Victor acknowledged Junwoo's strength but remained confident in his own power as a third circle magic user. Junwoo, too, recognized Victor's formidable abilities but remained calm and ready for battle. As Victor attacked, Junwoo skillfully dodged and swiftly counterattacked, brandishing his sword with precision. One of Victor's underlings, stunned by Junwoo's power, tried to defend himself, but Junwoo quickly overpowered him. Junwoo's strength cracked the ground beneath him, showing the force behind his strikes. Despite their best efforts, Victor's minions couldn't withstand Junwoo's relentless assault. He used explosives to disorient them, creating openings to strike. Junwoo remained focused and efficient, swiftly dispatching the remaining underlings within seconds. Even though the atmosphere darkened under Victor's magic, Junwoo stayed composed. He dominated the battlefield, showing no fear. Victor, realizing he needed to do more, summoned his powerful spell, the Eternal Curse. The atmosphere grew heavier and more ominous as the curse took effect. Victor believed that the curse would relentlessly pursue Junwoo and seal his victory. However, something unexpected happened. One of Victor's own underlings was struck by the curse instead, shocking everyone. Junwoo smiled, enjoying the twist of fate, and sarcastically thanked the underling for absorbing the curse meant for him. He even mocked Victor, calling him Grandpa Black Mage, further angering his opponent. Furious, Victor unleashed his full power, surrounding the area with a menacing aura. But Junwoo stood firm, unafraid, confident that Victor's magic wouldn't affect him. He then unleashed his fire-based magic, certain that Victor's third circle power couldn't match his own. In a rage, Victor shouted that he could have reached the seventh circle of power if Sepia hadn't been taken from him. Junwoo calmly replied that Victor's abilities were capped at the fifth circle, provoking him further. Desperate to win, Victor gathered all his energy, determined to crush Junwoo. But Junwoo had another trick up his sleeve. He threw one of Victor's underlings toward him, using the distraction to plant an explosive beneath Victor's underlings. The explosion caught Victor off guard, covering him in smoke and debris. Though stunned, Victor remained standing, his face a mix of anger and surprise. Junwoo continued advancing, his gaze unwavering, and declared that it was time to end the battle. But as he approached, a strange feeling washed over Junwoo, giving him shivers. He sensed that Victor might be hiding even more power than he had shown. Junwoo focused on Victor, but but he couldn't ignore the unsettling feeling creeping up his spine. His own fire-based power began to feel strange, as though it had a life of its own. Glancing at Sepia, Junwoo noticed tears streaming down her face, a reaction to Victor's overwhelming magical aura. This deepened Junwoo's concern, as the situation was becoming more complicated. It became clear that Sepia was not just an ordinary woman. There was more to her than Junwoo had initially thought. She possessed immense power, and the situation was taking an unexpected turn. Sepia's abilities began to manifest, revealing her true power. Despite her tears, it became clear she had immense strength, but there was sadness and anger tied to it. Her current state hinted at past trauma, and the fury in her eyes showed her desire for revenge against Victor. Sepia's scream echoed with rage and sorrow, and her power took center stage in the fight. It wasn't Junwoo's power affecting Victor, it was Sepia's. She possessed the ability to manipulate chains, similar to Victor's magic. With a sly grin, Sepia used her power to inflict pain on Victor, making him suffer the way she had. The tables had turned, and now Victor faced the consequences of his actions, with Sepia taking control. Junwoo stood in awe, amazed by Sepia's strength. As the chains tightened around Victor, he writhed in pain, unable to escape her power. Junwoo's gaming knowledge kicked in, realizing that such powerful magic was usually seen in late-game scenarios, meaning Sepia was no ordinary person. After using her abilities, Sepia collapsed from exhaustion, and Junwoo quickly caught her, preventing her from falling. She was unconscious, and tears continued to flow down her face as Junwoo held her. He noticed her struggle with controlling her immense powers and became concerned about what might happen if she couldn't manage them. Meanwhile, in the city of Libranas, investigations concerning Sepia were underway. Sigmund, her brother, was eager for news about her and was shocked to hear about a gang spotted near the Tur mountain range. The thought that Sepia might have fallen into their hands filled him with disgust and anger. Sigmund ordered his knights to find those responsible, determined to save his sister and ensure her safety. Even though he felt grief, he was driven by hope that Sepia was still unharmed. Back in the forest, Junwoo and Sepia continued their journey, walking through the serene woods. Sepia was unsure if they were heading in the right direction. Junwoo reassured her, saying he knew a shortcut, but he noticed the doubt on her face. Even though Junwoo had flawlessly navigated their way, Sepia still seemed uncertain. Junwoo decided not to argue, realizing that talking further might make her trust him less. As they traveled, Junwoo reflected on Sepia's incredible strength. He had underestimated her before but now understood how powerful she truly was. He also realized that her character class was hidden, and her stats seemed normal despite her amazing abilities. This made him curious about her potential and her connection to her brother, Sigmund. While they moved toward Libranas, Junwoo informed Sepia of his plan to get there quickly. He could still sense her doubts but was determined to uncover the truth about her powers. He knew that acting impatiently could lead to problems, and Victor's fate was a reminder of the consequences of carelessness. Sepia had also revealed a hidden side of herself, and Junwoo wanted to learn more about her past. As they walked, Junwoo decided to take a chance and ask Sepia a personal question. He slowed his pace, showing concern, and asked if she had ever been associated with the heretics. Sepia looked confused by the question, and the game notified Junwoo that her trust in him had dropped by 5 points. His question had caught her off guard, creating more distance between them. Meanwhile, in the Adara Cathedral of the Holy Kingdom, Priestess Clara, dressed in her white robes, was performing her duties. As she walked through the cathedral, a priest thanked her for being there. Clara smiled, happy to be of service. The priest then led her to meet the saintess of the cathedral. Clara was nervous but humbled as she knelt before Saintess Kalina Luna, who told her to rise. Kalina asked Clara about her recent journey to the Forgotten Temple. Clara, curious about why Kalina was interested, explained everything she had seen and experienced, including her encounter with the Death Knight and her return with mercenaries. Satisfied with Clara's story, Kalina thanked her and promised to reward her with a blessing. Clara expressed her gratitude before leaving the cathedral. After Clara left, Kalina remained deep in thought. She summoned Paul, the Archbishop of the Church, to discuss the matter further. Kalina believed Clara had been truthful, but something still felt off. Paul acknowledged this and mentioned Clara's association with Monty, which was Junwoo's alias. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Paul agreed to send a letter to Libranas to investigate further. Kalina's curiosity about Monty lingered, and she wondered about his true identity and connection to Clara. Sepia was still in shock from Junwoo's question about her connection to the heretics. Feeling pressured, she clarified that the black mages were likely tied to the cult. Junwoo remained skeptical, pointing out that all cults were more interested in gaining power than in faith. He was becoming suspicious of Sepia's immense, unpredictable powers. Sepia felt disheartened that Junwoo was starting to doubt her, though Junwoo had only asked the question to ease any tension. In Sepia's mind, she began to wonder if Junwoo had ties to the Church of Luna because of his impressive combat skills. Sepia recalled losing control of her mana as a child and how no mage had been able to help. Her power seemed tied to fire or light, which made Junwoo think she might have holy magic. Sepia assured him she had never hurt anyone before, though Junwoo remembered how she had punished Victor. Feeling bad for making her uncomfortable, Junwoo was caught off guard when Sepia asked if he was an inquisitor. Junwoo denied it, saying he was just a mercenary, though Sepia still assumed he might be from the east due to his appearance. Junwoo explained he wasn't part of any group, preferring his independence, and he had no ties to the Inquisitors, who had a reputation for acting unjustly based on suspicion. Junwoo emphasized that if he were an Inquisitor, he might have treated Sepia as an enemy due to her strange powers. They both agreed it was time to move toward Libernas. Junwoo cautioned Sepia that they should keep their subordination pact a secret from her brother, Sigmund, to avoid complications. Sepia, however, worried that Sigmund might not accept their explanation of the situation and asked Junwoo to intervene if her brother tried to follow them. She didn't want Sigmund to jeopardize everything he had worked for. Junwoo understood her concerns but thought Sigmund could be an asset, as he was strong. Still, Junwoo knew trust was important and agreed to respect Sepia's wishes. As they continued their journey, they suddenly heard loud noises. It turned out the Knights of Libernas were hunting bandits in the area. Sepia recognized the knights' insignia and rushed ahead. Junwoo, following her, noticed Sigmund among the knights, his usual calm demeanor replaced by intense anger. Sigmund, driven by rage, immediately attacked Junwoo without asking questions. Junwoo barely managed to block Sigmund's strike. Frustrated, Junwoo couldn't understand why Sigmund wouldn't listen before resorting to violence. Sigmund's strength was overwhelming, causing Junwoo to stumble backward and nearly fall. Regaining his balance, Junwoo tried to defuse the situation, but Sigmund continued his assault. Junwoo's quick reflexes allowed him to parry Sigmund's strikes, but Sigmund's relentless attacks pushed Junwoo to his limits. Eventually, Sigmund landed a blow, scratching Junwoo's cheek, which only increased Junwoo's frustration. Despite the escalating battle, none of the knights intervened, likely out of fear of their commander. Even Sepia stood by, watching helplessly as her brother attacked Junwoo. Though Junwoo felt the intensity of the fight, he realized Sigmund hadn't yet reached his full potential. Drawing on his own abilities, Junwoo managed to surprise Sigmund with his speed and agility, dodging his attacks. Junwoo leaped into the air, aiming a powerful kick at Sigmund, but Sigmund deflected the blow and counterattacked. Sigmund was impressed by Junwoo's combat skills but refused to back down, determined to prove himself. Just as the fight seemed to be reaching its peak, it was abruptly interrupted by a loud slap. Sepia had slapped Sigmund, leaving him stunned. She stood before him, clearly disappointed by his behavior. Junwoo observed the deep affection Sigmund had for his sister, possibly because she was the only family he had left. Sepia warned Sigmund that if he harmed Junwoo, there would be serious consequences, including her own demise. Sepia's words shocked both Junwoo and Sigmund, as they unintentionally implied that she was deeply in love with Junwoo. Realizing how her words sounded, Sepia was equally surprised. Sigmund, in particular, was stunned by the thought that his sister might be willing to sacrifice herself for Junwoo. This revelation left both Junwoo and Sigmund in a state of disbelief, as they processed the unexpected turn of events. After their tense confrontation, Junwoo, Sepia, and Sigmund entered the city of Libernas and gathered in the reception room of the Libernas Knights' residence to discuss matters more calmly. To ease the tension, Junwoo lied, saying he was a wandering doctor who had managed to temporarily cure Sepia's curse. Sigmund, curious about Junwoo's background, asked if he had encountered dark mages during his travels. Junwoo, feeling the weight of the question, answered yes. Sepia and Junwoo exchanged glances, silently acknowledging Junwoo's skill in making up stories under pressure. Eventually, Sigmund accepted Junwoo as the one who had saved his sister and thanked him sincerely. Sigmund, however, remained curious about Junwoo's fighting skills despite his claim of being a doctor. Junwoo explained that he had learned to fight during his travels for self-defense. He warned that Sepia's curse wasn't completely healed and that his treatment was only a temporary solution. Sigmund, desperate to help his sister, asked if there was any way to fully cure her. Junwoo reassured him with confidence, though Sepia cringed at his bold claims. Junwoo then compared Sepia's condition to a disease from his homeland, the formless poison, which required constant treatment and rare ingredients. When Sigmund asked for more details about the cure, Junwoo suggested that Sepia travel with him to gather the necessary ingredients. Sigmund objected, insisting he could gather the ingredients himself, but Junwoo explained that only he could identify the right ones. Sigmund was still reluctant to let Sepia go with Junwoo, but Sepia gently reassured her brother that she would be safe and promised to return. Her calming words gradually softened Sigmund's resistance. Once Sepia left the room, Sigmund asked to speak privately with Junwoo. As Sepia departed, Junwoo discreetly used the Pledge of Liberation, a magical bond between them, to remind her to pretend to be sick and write a farewell letter to Sigmund. After she left, Sigmund dropped the formalities and directly asked Junwoo to stop pretending. He sensed that Junwoo wasn't being fully honest. Junwoo admitted that his story of being a doctor was a lie, revealing his true identity as Dio, a mercenary from the game world they were in. Sigmund then questioned Junwoo's ability to truly lift Sepia's curse. Junwoo hesitated, knowing that the curse had already been lifted because of the subordination contract between him and Sepia. However, he didn't tell Sigmund the full truth, fearing it would make him even angrier. Instead, he vaguely stated that he had tried to cure it before. Sigmund's intuition told him Junwoo was still hiding something, but he didn't press further. Junwoo thought back to how he had found Sepia in a vulnerable state in a cave, which led to him saving her. However, he couldn't give Sigmund a simple answer to explain everything, so he told him that he had no hidden motives and was only helping her out of goodwill. Sigmund, though still unsure, seemed to calm down a bit but remained wary of Junwoo's true intentions. He confessed that he still didn't fully trust Junwoo with Sepia's safety. Junwoo understood Sigmund's concerns. He admitted he wasn't an all-powerful character in their world and couldn't reveal the fact that he had a hidden level 10 storage character named Dio. Sigmund acknowledged that Junwoo's actions in saving Sepia had been positive, but he still wanted to be sure Junwoo could protect her in the long run. Junwoo told Sigmund that, aside from the Archbishop of Luna, he was the only person capable of saving Sepia. He mentioned the Church of Luna on purpose, knowing that Sigmund hated them. Junwoo hoped this would make Sigmund see him as the lesser evil compared to the Church. To gain Sigmund's trust, Junwoo offered to help with tasks around Libernas, particularly investigating the recent disappearances in the area. Sigmund remained skeptical, wondering what a foreigner like Junwoo could possibly contribute. Junwoo then mentioned the back alley, a place Sigmund clearly had strong feelings about. The mention of the back alley struck a nerve, causing Sigmund to tighten his grip on his sword and grow visibly tense. Junwoo remained calm, having anticipated this reaction. The tension between Junwoo and Sigmund remained strong throughout the afternoon, and neither backed down. As Sigmund's sword grazed Junwoo and drew blood, the atmosphere grew heavy. Despite the close call, Junwoo stayed calm and urged Sigmund to think rationally. When Junwoo mentioned the back alleys of Libernas, Sigmund's agitation increased, hinting at deeper turmoil. Junwoo connected the disappearances in the city to the criminal activities in the back alleys and subtly suggested Sigmund might be involved in the lawlessness there. He pointed out the criminal factions that even the authorities hesitated to confront. Sigmund, filled with doubts, wanted reassurance from Junwoo and sought to establish trust between them. Junwoo confidently offered his help in dealing with the underground problems of the back alleys, and they discussed their plan late into the night. Sigmund was impressed by the depth of Junwoo's plan and questioned whether this was truly Junwoo's first time in Libernas. To cover his tracks, Junwoo fabricated another story, claiming to have once been a young surgeon turned detective. Sigmund silently pondered Junwoo's real intentions, and although he remained suspicious, he hoped Junwoo could be the resourceful ally he needed. As a precaution, Sigmund considered assigning someone to monitor Junwoo. The next day, Junwoo ventured into the busy market of Libernas, casually walking through the lively streets. He observed the unchanged nature of the bustling marketplace but remained focused on his agenda, which led him toward the criminal underground. He recalled the two main factions in Libernas, Golden Dawn, a moderate group, and Gorhal, extremists who controlled the back alleys. Sepia had been a victim of Gorhal's cruelty, and Sigmund's rage had been barely contained by her rescue. Junwoo knew the future was unpredictable and decided to stick to the game's storyline he remembered. As he stood before the Golden Dawn's headquarters, he anticipated his next move. Inside, members of the faction discussed the arrival of the Inspector General and awaited important news. Junwoo, disguised as the Inspector General, interacted with Rudens, a cheerful and polite member of Golden Dawn. Despite Rudens' positive attitude, Junwoo knew he was part of the criminal underground. After their conversation, Junwoo noticed Rudens shift to a more vigilant and focused demeanor as he left the room. As Junwoo walked the streets, he reminded himself that his actions today would affect tomorrow. Navigating through the crowded streets, Junwoo felt drawn toward the storage NPC, ready to engage in side activities to improve his skills. He soon encountered rat-like monsters, resembling a cross between rats and kangaroos. Junhwa fought them with precision, exploiting their weaknesses. Outnumbered and facing armed creatures, Junhwa moved fluidly, defeating them with calculated strikes. When a sneaky monster tried to attack him from behind, Junhwa reacted quickly, intercepting the strike just in time. With the monsters defeated, Junhwa checked his status window, focusing on the essence of fire needed for his next skill evolution. While he remained alert to the dangers around him, another monster attacked. Junhwa summoned a protective barrier, shielding himself from the creature's strike, then quickly counterattacked. As the monster's companion saw the mark on their fallen comrade, Junhwa activated an explosive spell, shouting "Mark." The resulting blast scattered debris, leaving Junhwa standing calmly amid the aftermath of the explosion. Soon after, Junhwa was approached by Priest Krupies, one of his subordinates, who came to check on him. Krupies was amazed by Junhwa's strength, especially after seeing the shattered remains of the Holy Shield. They had first met at the guild office while taking on quests, and Krupies, a priest from the Luna Temple, remembered their earlier encounters. Junhwa considered bringing Krupies along for future quests, particularly an upcoming mission to exterminate the Ratman. Krupies expressed gratitude for being part of the team, but Junhwa acknowledged the priest's valuable contribution. With their quest complete and all threats eliminated, Junhwa and Krupies prepared to depart. As they said their farewells, Krupies offered a final blessing in the name of Luna. Junhwa ventured into the dim sewers alone, while Krupies watched him leave with a steady gaze. However, once Junhwa was out of sight, Krupies revealed a sly grin. It became clear that Krupies had been on a covert mission, tasked with finding a man who matched Junhwa's description. He was eager to report his findings to the Archbishop. As evening settled over Liburnos, Junhwa decided to take a relaxing stroll. However, his peace was disrupted when two intimidating thugs suddenly blocked his path. Despite their menacing presence, Junhwa remained calm and composed, showing no fear. The thugs, however, mistakenly believed he was a spy from the Golden Dawn, a powerful group within the criminal underworld. Junhwa realized that rumors must have been spreading fast through the underground, leading to this misunderstanding. Frustrated by their inability to scare him, the thugs grew angrier. The bald thug, full of arrogance, declared that they were members of the notorious Gorhal gang. Still, Junhwa remained unfazed, confident in his ability to handle whatever they threw at him. Calmly, he asked to see their boss. The thugs, annoyed by his confidence, decided to attack him. Meanwhile, back at the Gorhal headquarters, all seemed quiet and peaceful. That was until a loud banging noise shattered the calm. Soon, the door bursts open. One of the thugs, badly beaten and gasping for breath, stumbled in and begged for help from his boss. He frantically explained that Junhwa, whom they assumed was with the Golden Dawn, had attacked them. The thug barely finished his sentence when Junhwa himself walked into the room. The boss of the Gorhal, furious at what they saw as Junhwa's arrogance, prepared to confront him. Junhwa held the injured thug tightly by the collar, asserting his dominance. As the thug lay on the ground, Junhwa thanked him for leading him straight to their boss. Upon closer inspection, the boss realized Junhwa was the same man brought in by Sigmund, another powerful figure in the underworld. The boss was curious about Junhwa's motives for confronting them and asked why he came to their guild instead of going directly to the Golden Dawn. Junhwa explained that Sigmund had tasked him with cleaning up the back alleys. The boss chuckled at the idea that Junhwa could accomplish such a mission, finding it laughable that someone like him would be taken seriously in their dangerous world. Despite the boss's disbelief, Junhwa stood firm, not backing down. When Junhwa explained that he wasn't working for Sigmund directly but simply fulfilling a request, the boss grew more frustrated. Junhwa then boldly declared his intention to unite the back alleys under one rule, an idea the boss found utterly ridiculous. In response, the boss ordered his underlings to attack Junhwa. The underlings eagerly obeyed, hoping to show off their strength and defeat Junhwa. As the underlings surrounded him, Junhwa stood ready for the fight. One of the archers fired an arrow at him, but with lightning-fast reflexes, Junhwa caught the arrow mid-air. Shortly after, one of the thugs charged at him, but with a single, powerful strike, Junhwa knocked back several of the underlings at once. They were shocked by the sheer force of his attack, unable to understand how such a simple move could be so devastating. Even their attempts to defend themselves proved useless, as they were completely overwhelmed by Junhwa's strength. Some of the underlings even began to wonder if he was a magic swordsman due to his incredible abilities. Realizing that close combat was a losing strategy, the underlings tried to change their approach, but Junhwa seized the opportunity and launched a surprise counterattack. The bald man from earlier couldn't believe it when Junhwa suddenly appeared in front of him and delivered a brutal blow. Junhwa then picked up the bald man's body and threw him at the other underlings. Turning his attention to the boss, Junhwa asked how long the boss planned to stand by and do nothing while his men were being defeated. Hearing this, the boss's anger boiled over. With a roar, she charged at Junwoo, determined to finish the fight herself. Although Junwoo was skilled, he struggled to keep up with the boss's powerful blows. The boss taunted him, mocking his reliance on a single technique. Junwoo knew that while the boss wasn't as strong as Sigmund, she was still a formidable opponent. Realizing he couldn't win by strength alone, Junwoo decided to rely on his gear. During the fight, the boss managed to disarm Junwoo, knocking his sword from his hand. Confident in her victory, she raised her axe, ready to land the finishing blow. However, when the boss struck, Junwoo blocked the attack with just his arm, which was protected by a special piece of armor. The boss was shocked and confused, unable to understand how Junwoo could defend against her full-force attack with one arm. Junwoo then revealed his secret. He was wearing a level 100 piece of equipment known as the Gauntlet of Instigation, a powerful item that granted him unparalleled defensive abilities. She was speechless and confused by his armor, noting that in game terms, this would be considered an artifact. None of the other players ever seemed to pay attention to technicalities like that, but according to the game settings, items with a grade of unique or higher were considered extremely valuable. She angrily taunted Junwoo, asking if he thought he could win just because he was wearing an artifact. Bursting into anger, she charged toward him. She attacked Junwoo with her shield, but he blocked the strike and stared into her eyes, declaring, "Of course, I'll win." Then, using his speed, he moved around and punched her in the back. She fell to her knees, while Junwoo stood unfazed, thinking to himself, a unique item and the Instigation 6-piece set. Can she still say it's nothing after seeing this? She couldn't defeat him while he wore such powerful armor. The strength boost alone was over 150, far beyond what other good items could offer. Yet, she stood back up and attacked Junwoo again with brute force. Junwoo grew curious because she recovered so quickly. At this point, she seemed very strong, and he realized she could be dangerous, even with his unique items. She slashed at him with her axe, aiming to kill, but Junwoo blocked the attack, grabbed her hand, and threw her to the ground. He then used his techniques to put her to sleep. As she fainted, Junwoo told her, "Take a rest for now." Her men were terrified, seeing their leader defeated single-handedly. They cursed Junwoo, but he warned them to behave if they valued her life. Junwoo sat on her body and thought to himself, "It's over now," believing he was strong. Yet, he realized it still wasn't enough, and his mind wandered to his first friend, Raymond, the one he made when he first fell into this game. He wondered if Raymond was okay. Meanwhile, the scene shifted to Raymond, who was yelling in pain, begging for mercy. Scarlet stood before him and asked her men if they had found anything. One replied that after some persuasion, the captives had revealed everything. After the monster attacked a Vera village, their target had left on a carriage. Scarlet asked if they'd learned anything from the driver, and the man explained that during the trip to Liburnas, the target asked to be dropped off in the Paramount Plains. Scarlet muttered about hearing something when the captives were first brought in, wondering aloud if it was about loyalty. A guard then entered and handed Scarlet a letter from Adara, which described a mercenary with skills as powerful as a monster. They might be able to pick up Monty's trail if they could catch this mercenary. Scarlet smiled at the thought of going after Monty and ordered her men to kill Raymond. As he shouted and pleaded for his life, the scene shifted again, this time back to Junwoo. The boss asked Junwoo why he hadn't killed her when he had the perfect chance. Junwoo replied that he came to talk, not to annihilate Gore Howl. The guards were shocked, and she asked him what he wanted. He announced that Sigmund wanted him to unify the two underground forces. Though he disliked trouble, Junwoo asked her what would happen after the unification and why not unify the back alleys as well. She was surprised, and he explained that he had tried to make the same suggestion to the Golden Dawn, but they were deceivers. Junwoo then declared that he liked her, and he would tell Sigmund that the two forces were unified, but she would be the true ruler. Just as she had wanted, she would have him in her hands. Bald Thug shares his backstory about when he first joined. At that time, the back alleys weren't divided, and criminals lived there freely. The first person to unite them was their boss, Tusk. She wasn't just powerful and ruthless, she also had true leadership skills, and he gave his loyalty to her. Junwoo tells her that if she follows his plan, she'll become the ruler of the back alleys. She seems ready to commit, but her bald guard can't believe she's falling for Junwoo's tricks. Junwoo instructs Tusk to plant bombs in certain areas and detonate them. Afterward, she needs to take care of the Golden Dawn. He assures her it won't be hard since they're weak. She questions if the knights and guards will attack them, but Junwoo announces that they will actually help her. He explains that the record will show Gore Howl stopped the Golden Dawn and saved many citizens. He promises her that she will rule the back alleys. However, the bald guard is still unsure and shouts that it's a trap, urging Tusk to reconsider. She silences him, reminding him that Janwoo could have killed them but didn't. She orders her men to prepare the explosives, though Bald Thug remains unconvinced. The scene shifts to Sepia, and Janwoo tells her he came to check on her. She confesses that even though she's fine, her heart aches whenever Janwoo is far away, and it's a suffocating feeling. Janwoo realizes he must keep her close and tells her to pack because he'll be done with his work soon. He knows it's sudden to ask her to leave her hometown, but he promises to show her the beauty of the sky of Liburnas before they depart. The scene changes to the captain of the secondary night corps standing in front of Janwoo. Janwoo thanks him for waiting while he was talking to his sister. The captain threatens Janwoo, saying he'll cut off his head if he pulls another stunt like that. He reveals that he's been watching Janwoo all week, and what he saw surprised him. Janwoo poked at both factions and signed up as a mercenary. The captain asks if Janwoo needs money. Janwoo expected this and tells him it's dangerous to go inside the Gore Howl base because they don't hesitate to commit heinous acts. The captain asks what will happen to Janwoo's sister if he dies. Janwoo tries to calm the situation and assures him that everything is under control. The captain asks if Janwoo plans to capture the Gore Howls. Janwoo explains that they need to give Golden Dawn some time. After the signal, they should wait an hour before moving the knights. When asked about the signal, Janwoo reveals it will be explosives, assuring there won't be any civilian casualties. 4 days later, on the day of the battle, everyone is busy with their preparations, unaware of what's about to unfold. Tusk announces that they've planted the explosives and just need to wait until noon. They all cheer, confident in their upcoming victory over the Golden Dawn. The only problem, Tusk reflects, was always the knights, and she never expected an Easterner like Janwoo to help her. Excitement fills her as the moment nears. Suddenly, something feels off. She picks up a stool and finds a bomb underneath, along with a note from Janwoo. A massive explosion follows, and the entire city celebrates, thinking they're witnessing fireworks. Even Sepia is delighted by the display. After defeating the Gore Howl boss, Janwoo sat happily, thinking that not even Tusk could have survived the explosion. The survivors didn't even know what had happened to their boss. The scene shifts to the bald soldier, who blames Rudens for the explosion and kills him. Meanwhile, Janwoo remained peaceful, confident that the knights would take care of the situation soon. Suddenly, the knights arrive at the scene and slash through the enemy's guts. Meanwhile, Janwoo prepares to go get Sepia and take her away while Sigmund is away. The scene then shifts to Sepia, standing in front of a window. Suddenly, she hears a noise and exclaims that she knows she locked the door. A man was standing behind her. The focus returns to Sigmund, who is appreciating Janwoo's good work. However, Sigmund reflects on how everything had gone according to plan and how skilled Janwoo is, even considering giving his sister Sepia to him. Suddenly, one of his soldiers exclaims that a strange mist is rising from the corpse, and it is similar to the mist left behind by demons. Sigmund warns everyone to pull back as the mist moves toward Sepia. On the other hand, Janwoo, noticing how well things were going according to the plan, questions why Golden Dawn is involved. Janwoo is surprised because what he thought about Golden Dawn was very different from the reality before him, and his aura is completely different from when they first met. Janwoo asks him if he has business with him, and Golden Dawn seals the gate using magical chains. Janwoo is both scared and surprised because he didn't know how strong Golden Dawn was, and he also had Sepia hostage. Janwoo attacks him, throwing a small knife at his face and then stabbing him in the chest with a sword. He knew, however, that Golden Dawn wouldn't die easily. Janwoo manages to rescue Sepia. In no time, Golden Dawn's wounds heal, and he compliments Janwoo's skills. Golden tells Janwoo that he already knows of his abilities. Janwoo exclaims that Golden Dawn is a vampire, as vampires are the only beings with such healing abilities. Golden then mocks Janwoo, asking whether it's his sword or his armor that sucks because he isn't as skilled as he thought. Janwoo responds by saying it's both. Janwoo is pissed off, first, by the unnecessary questions, and second, because Golden had broken into someone's house and taken them hostage. He demands to know what Golden Dawn wants from him, but before he can get an answer, Golden Dawn punches him with brute force. Golden Dawn attacks Janwoo, and he struggles to hold him back due to Golden Dawn's immense strength, though he manages to block some of his attacks. Janwoo tries to push him back but leaves an opening. Golden Dawn takes advantage of this and strikes. However, Janwoo, being skilled, stabs him in the eye with a candle holder. Sarcastically, Janwoo tells him he was aiming to blow his head off. Golden Dawn, impressed, appreciates Janwoo's skill, but Janwoo realizes the candle holder is ineffective. Suddenly, Golden Dawn starts laughing and declares that he has already won. Confused, Janwoo asks if he knows him. Golden Dawn reveals that he is a forgotten swordsman and that he knows Janwoo. He then shares his story, explaining that he has lived for thousands of years, founded a clan, and became its leader. John Woo, contemplating his tale, thinks that if Golden Dawn were truly serious, he'd already be dead because Golden Dawn is at least level 350. John Woo asks if there are other vampires in the city, but Golden Dawn refuses and explains that the land holds a lost history from thousands of years ago. He mentions that John Woo could unlock secret powers by gaining knowledge of the Forgotten Swordsman's history. John Woo presses Golden Dawn for more information. Golden Dawn reveals that everything began thousands of years ago, during the Holy Age. While today the only deity worshipped is Luna, in the past there existed a deity far stronger, the sun John Woo. Golden Dawn reveals that they cannot say the sun deity's name because their current world is under Luna's authority. He warns John Woo to be careful, as he, too, possesses the sun's power. John Woo, still confused, asks for more details. Golden Dawn explains that during the ancient Holy War, the Demon King invaded the human world, and both the moon and sun worked together to protect humanity. However, the sun was erased from history. Luna then went after the sun's church and wiped out any trace of its existence, which is why the sun deity was forgotten. John Woo questions why Golden Dawn continues to worship the sun deity. Golden Dawn reveals that others also worship the sun in secret. He adds that the Death Knight Adelia Dark, a follower of the sun deity, must have inherited its power. Surprisingly, Golden Dawn reveals that both John Woo and Sepia possess the sun's power. However, kidnapping Sepia wasn't his motive, perhaps it was all part of the sun deity's plan for them to meet. John Woo, now questioning himself, wonders if everything is part of the sun deity's grand design. The scene shifts to Scarlet, who remarks on how noisy the town has become. Her maid, equally surprised, says it's her first time seeing Libranos like this. Scarlet instructs her to ensure everything is in order and report back. She then asks about Dio, to which the maid responds that Dio is currently the captain of Libranos. Scarlet questions how they know each other, considering that the Night Corps have some of the best security. Despite that, she appreciates Sigmund's good reputation as a faithful knight. Scarlet, enjoying the idea of shattering others' faith, orders her maid to get ready so they can go observe the great vice-captain. John Woo thinks about why he is stuck here, and Golden Dawn realizes that it's time to end their conversation because Sigmund is on his way. He knows that John Woo has a lot of questions, but he will get answers with time. He instructs him to go to Astellum, where he will find a friend of his. He announces that it was good to meet him, even though it was short. As he steps into the portal, he says that the sun will rise again. Sigmund and his soldiers enter the room, shouting, "Where is the intruder?" Sigmund looks around and asks why the room is such a mess. Meanwhile, it's revealed that if John Woo uncovers the forgotten history, he will unlock secret powers. The scene shifts to the jail, where John Woo, from inside his cell, asks for food because he is hungry. He regrets that everything turned out worse because he got involved with demons, and Golden Dawn just disappeared, leaving him with all the mess to handle. Sigmund steps in, and John Woo angrily tells him to get him out of there. His guard gets angry, but Sigmund tells him to leave them for a moment. He wants to talk to John Woo personally. Sigmund apologizes for putting him in jail, explaining that there were other people involved, but there is a serious problem. John Woo tells him that if this has to do with demons, he is not involved. Sigmund reveals that someone came from Luna looking for a mercenary named Monty, and they were also curious about the explosion and John Woo's involvement with demons. Sigmund tells John Woo that the church wanted to interrogate Sepia and him, but he refused. John Woo starts thinking that even the knights couldn't fight the deity's church. Sigmund exclaims that he was worried about Sepia's powers because they would have been discovered if they had interrogated her. He tells John Woo that he still doesn't trust him, but he has no other option. Suddenly, one of his soldiers warns that Luna's people have arrived. Sigmund commands John Woo to take his sister and leave. John Woo runs toward his room to get his sister, thinking that Sigmund might sacrifice his life to protect Sepia. From what he heard in the game, the church is now their enemy. Even thinking about it gives him chills. The scene shifts to the battlefield, where a knight orders Scarlet to stop and not step forward. However, Scarlet doesn't listen to him and slices his head off. The other soldiers start shouting, preparing to charge at her. Suddenly, Sigmund steps in and orders them to stop the fight. Scarlet sarcastically asks if he is the knight from the rumors. She heard he was the current leader of the knights. Sigmund, trying to calm the situation, asks her why she entered Libranos and killed a knight. She tells him that the moment the knight stood in her way, his fate was sealed. His soldiers, still enraged, want to attack, but Sigmund stops them. He tells Scarlet that he will not allow her to execute anyone. She sarcastically tells him that he is trying to hide his sister. He tries to protect his sister, explaining that she is recovering both physically and mentally. Suddenly, Scarlet attacks Sigmund and taunts him, asking if he truly doesn't want to wait. Scarlet appreciates Sigmund's fighting skills and exclaims that the rumors were not a complete lie because he dodged her attack even though he didn't even reach for his sword. However, she charges toward him and attacks him, asking him if the fact that he is refusing to show off his skill means he is looking down on her. She hits his face with her knee, and he falls to the ground. She reveals that she saw an explosion yesterday and that there was also the presence of a demon. Sigmund asks her that since the mercenary is her priority, why is she looking for his sister? She tells him that he is right and that questioning the demon's appearance comes second. She starts to realize that maybe it's her fault, and Sigmund exclaims that it's a misunderstanding. He doesn't know any mercenaries named Monty, and the one who is held is not him. She asks him if he already knows, then why is he risking his life? Is it because of the pride of the knights or for the protection of his family? Suddenly, her soldiers come up and inform her that the mercenary has disappeared. The scene shifts to shortly before, where John Woo was blaming Sigmund for not providing any information other than opening a door. This prison is a complex labyrinth, and it's impossible to escape without prior knowledge. He moves the bed, and there is a hole behind it, so he goes into that hole and comes out from behind the Night Corps residence. He realizes that Sigmund told him that Sepia is on the 4th floor, so he has to be careful because Sigmund is the only person who knows that he escaped the prison. He is thinking about how he can rescue Sepia and get out of there. So, he looks in his inventory to see if he has anything that can help him. He chooses a transformation potion. The scene shifts to a maid asking a man if he has seen Sigmund, but he refuses and exclaims that he came to check on Sepia. It is revealed that the maid is John Woo, and he knocks him out and shifts into his form. He knocks on Sepia's door, and when she opens it, he suddenly grabs her hand and tells her that they don't have enough time, so they have to leave. They both hear noises from outside the room, and he asks Sepia if she trusts him. He turns her into a rock and keeps her in his inventory. He had to turn her into stone because he couldn't put anything living inside the inventory. He explains that it's a secret to keep someone inside the inventory by turning them into statues and then storing them. He hears knights talking about mercenaries escaping the city, and he is ready to escape. However, he remembers when the Lord of Vampires told him to go to his friend in Estelum. So, he sets off on a new journey. The backstory of Sigmund and his sister Sepia is shown, revealing that they were always being used by others. A couple of times, they were exploited by gentle-looking people to sell drugs, and once, these siblings were almost sold as slaves. Sepia was sleeping and thinking about John Woo, and she admires the fact that John Woo is a good person with a good heart. However, John Woo comes up to her and tries to wake her. She is feeling sick, so John Woo asks her if she is okay. She exclaims that it could be because of the separation from her brother. She feels bad about herself and exclaims that she can always rely on others, and she has to become strong and independent. She asks John Woo if she can become stronger if she stays right beside him, and John Woo reveals that she can become strong, but she has to face difficulties that she has never experienced before. She asks him if she is alright with that, but she is determined and motivated, so he exclaims that she is ready. The scene shifts, and John Woo tells her about everything and that they are being chased by the Church of Luna. She appreciates him saying that he could have left her behind, but he didn't, so she thanks him for his help. She regrets the fact that she couldn't even say goodbye to her brother. However, he tries to cheer her up and tells her that she will meet her brother again. He gives her a bow and tells her that it's a suitable weapon for her because it doesn't require much strength or technique to use. He thinks that he has to raise her so she can become powerful and independent. The scene shifts to two monsters hanging out in the jungle. Suddenly, an arrow is shot toward them and kills one monster. Sepia appears and fights the other monsters, using her techniques to defeat them. In the end, she succeeds and asks John Woo if she did well. He says that she did a great job, but low-key, he was surprised by her performance. She grew quite well in just half a month, and her fighting skills improved because she already knew self-defense techniques.